Good evening, everybody. I'm Nick Haslam. I'm your host. This is Cosmic Surfers. Big day in the sun on the mower. And today we're going to do a natural law reading from Mark Passio's Natural Law Seminar, the 3-part or the 9-hour seminar. So, as some of you may or may not know, I'm the founder of Hum Hive, which is an agent-centric peer-to-peer natural law media protocol, which allows you to spin up your own media ecosystem and to set up on your own terms and not to be censored, because you can swap out the parts because it's modular using holochain and DHT technology. And so the reason why I'm telling you that is because one of the guys that works with us, EL, has been on the podcast with us, the meditation teacher. He's been doing some work with us over the years, and he took some notes from Mark Passio's Natural Law Seminar. And so I wanted to read it with you guys. So this is what it's going to look like. Now, I know that it kind of looks a bit rough, and just with the software. This is kind of going to be the best way to read it. So, yeah, that's this is what I want to do for you guys, and I'm going to learn with you guys along the way. I've been through the podcast a few times, and I think this helps learn. So this is going to be a learn along, a read along of the notes from Mark Passio's Natural Law Seminar. So here we go. Mark Passio, Natural Law, the Real Law of Attraction. The exploration of natural law does not aim at inventing new ideologies or reinventing the wheel. The philosophy underlines that there's nothing new under the sun. Truth is an immutable, eternal constant that has always coexisted with us. It's our perception that needs to be aligned with this truth to achieve understanding and alignment with natural law. By its very nature, truth is belligerent because it's always at war with falsehood and misunderstanding. Understanding truth is a continuous process of discovery, not a finite goal. Natural law is king. So I just want to mention on that, not in some kind of hierarchical way or kind of, bringing in those kind of systems. It just means that, learning natural law and objective morality must come first. Only after that knowledge is deeply ingrained in humanity, that is, it is considered purely common sense, can any system be implemented that will have a truly good effect in a lasting way in our world. And as someone's building natural law technology, this is part of the reason why I'm doing this with you guys now, because we must learn natural law and objective morality first. And as someone creating technology, learning this first and teaching it allows me to create in alignment with it. Teachability and information sources. Teachability, a measure of learning potential. The teachability of an individual, which is their ability to learn from others, greatly depends on their level of open-mindedness or closed-mindedness. Low teachability is a result of arrogance, rigid skepticism, and a tendency towards naivety and gullibility. High teachability comes from a balanced mix of healthy skepticism and an open-minded willingness to learn and adapt. Evaluating information sources. Humans need to scrutinize their information sources with great care. Many modern institutions control human perception by dismissing or refusing to present certain information, thus limiting what people can understand. And hence why I'm building what I'm building. Requirements and knowledge. Manifesting desired conditions. Understanding requirements for desired conditions. While humans express the desire for conditions such as happiness, health, peace, freedom, and prosperity, specific requirements must be met to realize these conditions. These conditions do not magically manifest if the necessary requirements are not fulfilled. The real law of attraction, beyond thought and feeling. The law of attraction underscores that desired conditions do not manifest merely by thinking or feeling about them. There are natural requirements that must be met to actualize the conditions we want. The critical role of knowledge. Knowledge, a prerequisite for obtaining desires. If humans, as a species, don't already possess what they desire, it logically follows that the knowledge of the requirements to obtain these desires is either missing or, if present, is deliberately being ignored. As long as this critical knowledge remains unknown or neglected, the manifestation of the desired conditions will be impossible. The presence and acknowledgement of such knowledge is therefore key to achieving our aspirations. Understanding occult knowledge. Definition and composition of occult knowledge. The term occult originates from the Latin adjective occultus, meaning hidden, and the verb occultare, meaning to hide, to conceal, or to keep secret. Occult knowledge encompasses two key aspects: the understanding of human consciousness and how it operates, the understanding of natural law, the unseen universal spiritual laws governing the outcomes of human behavior, also referred to as karmic law for intelligent species. So the understanding of human consciousness and how it operates, and the understanding of natural law, which are the unseen spiritual laws governing the outcomes of human behavior. The arcana of occult knowledge, microcosm and macrocosm. The arcana of occult, the lesser arcana or the microcosm refers to individual human consciousness. The greater arcana or the macrocosm refers to the broad laws of nature. From spiritual to physical, the manifestation of occult knowledge. Occult knowledge begins in the spiritual domain and subsequently manifests in the physical domain. So I'll repeat that. Occult knowledge begins in the spiritual domain and subsequently manifests in the physical domain. That's key. The power differential, controlling through knowledge. Deep knowledge about how humans function, behave, and think can lead to potential control over them. Individuals with this knowledge can potentially use it to our detriment. Such knowledge is not common because it is deliberately hidden to maintain a power differential between those who possess this information and those who do not. Again, another reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, so we can all have access to such knowledge. Natural law, the deepest occulted information. The knowledge of natural law and its workings represents the most deeply hidden information on Earth. This knowledge is suppressed by those in power because its understanding would level the playing field and terminate the currently established system of control. Distractions such as news, video games, and sports can often divert our attention from this crucial knowledge. Nescience versus ignorance, differentiating between context of not knowing. Nescience. The term nescience comes from the Latin verb nesciere. Nescience refers to a lack of knowledge due to its absence or because it is unattainable. This is a state where the information required is not available or it is beyond one's capacity to comprehend or access. Ignorance. The term ignorance originates from the Latin verb ignorare, meaning to not know. Ignorance, however, denotes a situation where necessary information is present, but it has been willfully refused or disregarded. It signifies an active choice to ignore the available knowledge. Ignorance thus implies that we are ignoring the truth, which is plentifully available, but people often choose to not acknowledge it. The problem of human slavery. Get into the heart of the problem. The fundamental nature of the problem of human slavery is that most human beings do not have a full and accurate understanding of true objective morality and natural law. This ignorance leads them to erroneously believe that human behaviors based on the belief in authority are morally legitimate and acceptable when they are absolutely not. As a result, many behaviors which most human beings enact and condone are completely out of alignment with natural law. The path to the solution. The only solution is a spiritual solution. The solution is spiritual. The solution will be conveyed through modern technological media. Boom. It doesn't mean the answer is technology. Technology is a tool for getting the answer out, which is spiritual, out to the people. Become truly enlightened regarding objective morality and natural law first, then teach others publicly through this technology. And illiteracy and slavery. Most human beings have still not understood the inseparable role that technological literacy has with human freedom. Many are simply too lazy to learn and employ it. That is why the truth is not reaching enough people. Enacting the solution. The one great work of ending slavery will never be accomplished until the knowledge of objective morality and natural law is learned first, and then published and communicated through modern forms of media widely and freely for all to learn. Problem solving, a 3-step approach. Step 1, recognize the problem. The first step in problem solving involves recognizing that there is a problem to be addressed. This stage can be difficult as it often involves overcoming fear-based denial. Fear may make us reluctant to acknowledge the existence of a problem because of the potential challenges and changes that may be necessary to address it. Step 2. Once the problem is recognized, the next step is to understand that the symptoms we see are merely effects of underlying causes. To truly address the problem, we need to diagnose the causes rather than simply treating the symptoms. The term diagnosis comes from the Greek preposition meaning through, by way of, and the Greek noun gnosis, which means knowledge. To make an accurate diagnosis requires an investment of time and effort. It requires reading, listening, watching. Essentially, gaining knowledge about the underlying causal factors that led to the creation of the symptoms. Focusing solely on treating symptoms is likely to provide a long-term resolution to the problem. Is unlike, I didn't think that made sense. Excuse me. Focusing solely on treating the symptoms is unlikely to provide a long-term solution to the problem. Step 3. Rectify the causal factors. With the knowledge acquired via accurate diagnosis, the final step involves taking the necessary action to rectify the causal factors that led to the manifestation of the problem. This can involve changing behaviors, implementing new strategies, or making difficult decisions. But by addressing the root causes, we have the potential to not only solve the current problem, but also prevent similar issues arising in the future. Truth versus perception. Truth, an objective reality. Truth, by its very nature, is objective. It is not dependent on the perceptions of human beings, which can be unreliable and subject to fluctuation. The truth is simply that which is, encompassing all that has occurred in the past and all that is occurring in the present. The truth, once established, is unwavering and constant. It doesn't change just because our understanding or acknowledgement of it might. And I'll add to this, it's also living, which is what we learn from natural law, LORE. Perception. Perception, on the other hand, does not equate to reality, though it influences how we interpret and interact with the world. It serves as a personal lens through which we view and interpret reality. Our work as conscious beings is not to force reality to align with our perceptions, but rather to align our perceptions with the truth of reality. Our perceptions can, and often do, deviate from the truth. They can be influenced by a multitude of factors, including personal biases, past experiences, and our current emotional state. Consciousness, the bridge between perception and truth. An individual's ability to perceive and comprehend what has occurred or what is occurring is referred to as consciousness or awareness. It is our ability to recognize patterns and derive meaning from them. The quality of our consciousness can significantly impact our perception of truth. If our consciousness is high, we have a greater ability to recognize patterns, discern truth, and align our perception with that truth. Conversely, if our consciousness is low, we may struggle to recognize patterns and are less likely to accurately perceive reality. In essence, the higher our consciousness or frequency, the more closely aligned we are with the truth. Our personal desires or wishes do not define reality. We may want certain things to be true, but wanting does not make it so. It is our responsibility to elevate our consciousness to perceive the world as it truly is, rather than as we may wish it to be. Understanding definitions. This is something I've learned from Mark Passio, along with a lot of things. Definition. A precise statement that explains the exact meaning of a word or concept. It serves as an exact statement or description of the nature, scope, or meaning of something. It describes the degree of distinctness or clarity of an object, image, or sound. The importance of accurate definitions. Definition: a precise statement that explains the exact meaning of a word or concept. 1. It serves as an Did I just read that? I'll just read it again anyway. 1. It serves as an exact statement or description of the nature, scope, or meaning of something. 2. It describes the degree of distinctness or clarity of an object, image, or sound. 2. The importance of accurate definitions. Accurate definitions increase our clarity of meaning and consequently our understanding of words or concepts. 2. When definitions are precise, they help us to communicate effectively and eliminate ambiguity. 3. They provide the foundational understanding needed to facilitate accurate communication and learning. Clear and concise definitions enhance our capacity to understand, discuss, and apply concepts effectively. Definition and nature of natural laws. Natural, inherent to, and having bias in reality and nature. Law, an existing condition that is both binding and immutable. We prefer law, and I use them interchangeably. So I actually do want to take a bit of time off this reading. Just give me a second here. So I want to read the definition of law, L-O-R-E, while we're on this. Law refers to a particular body of knowledge, traditions, stories, or beliefs regarding a specific subject, typically passed down orally or through informal, non-official, or traditional means. It often encompasses folklore, legends, or detailed, specialized information about a particular topic. So I wanted to add that in because I am using LAW and LORE, and I am actively working to bring these communities together because the people in the LORE world believe that LAW law means man's law, and that's incorrect. And the people in the LAW law world don't even know that LORE exists or think that it's something different. Both camps have a lot to learn from each other, and it's one and the same. When you know, you know. Nature law or natural law. They are a set of laws that operate in the non-physical. These laws are built into the fabric of reality. Because they are hidden or in the non-physical, human beings must incorporate a much wider worldview to recognize and accept their existence and operation. Natural law is not a religion or belief system. They are observable, measurable, and repeatable effects in our world. It is the science of morality. They are a set of universal, non-man-made, binding, and unchanging conditions which govern the behavior consequences of beings with the capacity for holistic intelligence. Belief or non-belief in these laws are irrelevant as they exist anyway. Discovering natural law versus belief. Discovery. 1. Natural law. It is a principle capable of being discovered, understood, and harmonized with. It is not dependent on belief or religion, but exists as a science. 2. Understanding natural law. It's about recognizing that these laws are already in effect. We can either align our behavior with them by understanding them or suffer consequences by remaining ignorant. 2. Belief. Irrelevance of belief. Human belief is entirely irrelevant when it comes to the existence and operation of natural law. Similar to other laws of nature like gravity, inertia, momentum, thermodynamics, or electromagnetism. Understanding versus belief. The workings of natural law don't require belief for them to be discovered and known. They are independent of human perspective and remain constant regardless of our perceptions or convictions. Understanding consciousness and the brain. Consciousness. It's an intangible force that exists even though you can't see it. It's the ability of a being to recognize patterns and meanings in relation to events taking place within oneself and in the environment in which one exists and operates. It is our ability to accurately perceive the truth of what has happened and what is happening. Expressions of consciousness. Thoughts. These are the creative force for the expression of consciousness in the individual. Before anything can exist in a physical domain, it must first exist as a thought. I'm just going to take a drink of water. Give me a second here. And spilled it all over myself. Okay. Emotions. Considered as the feminine aspect of consciousness, they are an internal expression felt inwardly, inside the physiology. Actions. They are the outcome of the interplay between thoughts, the father essence, and emotions, the sacred feminine essence. I'll say sacred father essence then, or divine masculine, divine feminine. It is action, not faith, that will save humanity, which is why you need to take action and do this too. If you're listening to this, you need to be doing this too, because action saves humanity. Thoughts are the creative essence that marries the feminine. A father creator, a sacred feminine figure, and then that offspring is born a male child. Brain structure and function. Understanding brain health is critical because of its significant role in human behavior. The human brain comprises of the R complex, reptilian brain, facilitates basic survival functions. The limbic system facilitates human emotions. Neocortex, the human brain, facilitates higher thought functions and conscience. Hemispheric functions of the neocortex. Left hemisphere facilitates logic, analytical thought, scientific and mathematical thinking. Right hemisphere facilitates intuition, creativity, holistic thought, compassion, nurturing, care, and ethics. When both hemispheres are in balance, true intelligence, which is intellect plus creativity, is born. And the neocortex acts as the executive command center of the brain. Imbalances in brain hemispheric dominance. Left brain dominance. If the left hemisphere becomes chronically dominant, the R complex takes over the executive function of the brain, and the individual becomes ruled by selfishness and base desires, leading to a personality based in domination and control. Right brain dominance. If the right hemisphere becomes chronically dominant, the limbic system takes over the executive function of the brain, and the individual becomes ruled by their own emotions, leading to a personality based in submissiveness and naivety. The schism, impact of dominance in brain hemispheres, intellect, masculine dominance. Chronic dominance of this part of the brain can lead to issues such as rigid skepticism, scientism, atheism, solipsism, which is, if we might get into this, but solipsism is the belief that the truth can't be known, and that bullshit saying of like, oh, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know anything. Moral relativism, social Darwinism, eugenics, and authoritarianism. Intuition, feminine dominance. Chronic dominance in this part of the brain can result in issues like naivety, blind belief, religious extremism, solipsism, unworthiness, self-loathing, order follower mentality, willingness to be enslaved. Worldview schism, the conflict of beliefs. Randomness. This worldview maintains that the universe is a grand accident, there is no creator, and therefore no underlying intelligence in nature. Spiritual, moral, natural law does not exist. Existence has no purpose other than to continue to exist. Is characterized by scientism, atheism, and totalitarianism. Determinism. This worldview holds that God controls every event in creation, all occurrences are preordained, free will is an illusion and does not exist. Since God controls everything, change is impossible. Action is ultimately meaningless. It's characterized by religious extremism and slave think. Coexistence of natural law and free will. Natural law, which represents the deterministic component of reality, coexists with free will, representing the random component of reality. I'll read that again. Natural law, which represents the deterministic component of reality, coexists with free will, representing the random component of reality. Every single individual has the free will to choose their behaviors. Human nature and the human condition. The influence of environment. Human nature. Human nature is either inherently human nature is neither inherently good nor inherently evil. Instead, it's crucial to consider the operating conditions or the environment which greatly influences human behavior and creates the current human condition. Humans can be likened to computers in terms of their programmability. We are not computers, but we share a similarity in the way we can be programmed. The environmental inputs, such as culture, which become our programming, determine our output onto the screen of human life. If a human being has a bad file system format, the conditions during a child's formative years, a bad operating system, culture, and bad software programs, erroneous, rigid, and dogmatic beliefs, their output behavior onto the screen, life, will also be detrimental, contributing to deteriorating conditions on a mass scale. Just like a computer, human behavior largely depends on its programming, the quality of information put into it, enabling it to process and create efficiently. There's a simple rule of thumb: garbage in, garbage out. Poor input leads to poor output. Quality in, quality out. Quality input leads to quality output. Process of constructing our reality. Knowledge or lack thereof. Knowledge is composed of available information. This represents potential knowledge that individuals may gather, process, understand, and act upon. Understanding or lack thereof. Understanding is derived from decision-making processes which occur in the human mind. Each person chooses these processes based on the available information. Wisdom or lack thereof. Wisdom manifests as human behavior. Each individual's behavior is influenced by the quality of their decision-making processes, which are, in turn, influenced by the quality of their available information. Wisdom is the applied form of knowledge and understanding. Applied, the action. Generated result, order or chaos. The generated result is our manifested reality. The quality of conditions that manifest in any society is based on the cumulative quality of human behavior within that society. In the aggregate, we are creating a shared reality. Principles of natural law. Let me just grab another drink. It's been a big one in the sun today. Whew. Principles of natural law. From the Latin noun principia, which means first, foremost, leading, chief, most necessary, principles are the most important thing. They always come first. General principles of natural law. So, first things first. Natural law is expressed through 7 basic underlying principles, plus an 8th principle that binds the other 7 together. These principles constitute a master key through which universal wisdom, including the knowledge of the requirements to obtaining what we desire, is unveiled or de-occulted. The 7 principles of natural law. The principle of mentalism. The all, everything in creation, is a manifestation of mind. The universe is mental. Thoughts lead to the manifestation of things and events. Thoughts create our state of existence and the quality of our experience here on Earth. Therefore, to change reality, one must change the way they think. Therefore, be responsible for everything you create by being responsible for everything that you think. I'll repeat that. Therefore, be responsible for everything you create by being responsible for everything you think. The principle of correspondence. The macrocosm, the totality, and the microcosm, the individual units which comprise the whole, are reflections of each other. The universe is holographic. It is self-similar across all scales. That which is above is like that to which is below. That which is below is like that to which is above. The macrocosm, the very large, the totality, and the microcosm, the very small, the individual units which comprise the whole, are reflections of each other. The universe is holographic. It is self-similar across all scales. To know the workings of the individual will help us towards an understanding of the macrocosmic laws. Similarly, to learn the macrocosmic laws will help us to learn the way that consciousness within the individual functions. These two things cannot be separated from each other. The other part of this, there might be a typo here. The other part of this principle is that reality is also fractal in nature. Fractals are self-similar across all scales of existence. We see this through things like Fibonacci sequence, and this is repeated everywhere in nature. The principle of vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves and vibrates. The universe and everything within it is pure vibratory energy manifesting itself in different ways. The principle of polarity, everything is dual, has poles, and it's pair of opposites. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet, and all paradoxes may be reconciled. The principle of rhythm, everything flows, has its tides, rises and falls. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. Principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for a law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. Again, is there free will? Yes, but there is free will to ignore. But is there free will to ignore law without consequence? No, there is not. Free will operating within boundary conditions known as natural law. Free will is operating within boundary conditions known as natural law. Free will operates within these boundaries or parameters of natural law. You cannot break natural law without consequence. Principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. The eighth principle, the generative principle of care, or all care. So it's the generative principle or the principle of care. Encapsulates all of it. This is the encapsulating principle, the one within which all other principles fit. Care constitutes what we are giving our time and energy to, what we are focusing on and helping to grow. Thus, it can be seen as the ultimate generator of the quality of our experiences. The lost principle of care. What we care about on a day-to-day basis acts as the driving force of our thoughts and actions. Therefore, care can be seen as the ultimate generator of the quality of our experience. The principle has often been referred to as the generative principle. What are you giving your attention to and helping to grow? What are you focusing upon? Because what you focus upon is what's ultimately getting generated, getting created, and growing. This forms the basis of creation. Plane of causality, mental world. The plane of causality, also referred to as the mental world, is the plane where causes are set into motion before they manifest as formed realities. Key points. The plane of causality constitutes the causal factors, the why, which precede all manifested things and events. All power to effect change resides in this plane. Therefore, human consciousness needs to shift from the plane of effects to the plane of causality. The first step in any change or manifestation process is in the mental world. Everything happens in the mind first before it trickles down into the physical domain. Plane of effects, physical world. The plane of effects is the physical world where manifested realities form due to their underlying causes. Key points. The plane of effects is constituted by occurrences that have already taken place. Thus, no power to effect change resides in this plane as events cannot be reversed. Unfortunately, human consciousness seems to be trapped at this level, implying a collective ignorance of underlying causes that humans set into motion, leading to self-inflicted suffering. The plane of effects symbolizes the symptoms of underlying causes. Thus, it is crucial to identify the underlying factors causing the symptoms. Principle of gender. The principle of gender posits that gender is inherent in everything that and manifests on all planes with every entity having both masculine and feminine principles. Key points. Mental gender is the coexistence of masculine and feminine aspects within the human mind. The masculine aspect of the mind or intellect is primarily facilitated by the left brain hemisphere and is associated with logic, analysis, and linear thought processes. Conversely, the feminine aspect or intuition is largely facilitated by the right brain hemisphere and is related to creative, compassionate, and holistic thought processes. Spiritual currencies, time and attention. The two spiritual currencies are time and attention. Analogously, we often talk about spending time and paying attention. Attention has a lot of negative connotations because of how much it has been hijacked. And yeah, I'll agree with that. That's how social media works, and the darker cultures have hijacked technology. Just if dopamine hits, for attention, and that's how they get the value of their companies. So it's another layer of that currency of attention. What you give care to grows. This is more in the positive. What you give care with your attention to grows. The investment of our spiritual currency results in certain returns. These could be in the form of knowledge, understanding, skills, expertise, and empowerment if we invest our spiritual currencies wisely. The quality of attention matters significantly. We should strive to focus our attention on information capable of improving ourselves and the human condition as a whole. This investment of attention is also a valuable use of our time. It is crucial to regularly reflect on the usage of our spiritual currencies. Ask questions like, what am I spending my time on? What am I paying attention to? What kind of quality am I getting in return for these investments of my spiritual currency? By asking these questions, we can assess how effectively we're using our spiritual currencies and make necessary adjustments to maximize the benefits. Natural law definitions, expressions, and consequences. Definitions. Natural law can also be referred to as law of cause and effect. Effect invariably affects effect. Effect invariably follows cause. For every action, there exists an equal and opposing reaction. Law of attraction. The energy you emit is the energy you attract. Energy flows where attention goes. As you think, feel, and act, so you shall be. Karma or moral law. You reap what you sow. Golden rule. Do unto others as you would have do unto yourself. As you would have done unto yourself. Natural law expressions or how it works. Context. Let me take a few breaths, please. Context. The recognizable workings of natural law in human life take place through 5 basic expressions. Each of these 5 expressions have a positive and negative aspect, giving us a total of 10 overall natural law expressions. Natural law expressions. Generative polarity. What we use to co-create the reality we experience with the laws of nature. The force we use to generate the quality of our experience. Positive equals love, consciousness. Love is the force that helps us to expand us and open us to truth. The positive aspect of the generative polarity is love. In regard to natural law, love should be seen as the expansive force for consciousness. Love is the force which helps us to become open to truth and expand our awareness. Negative equals fear, unconsciousness. The negative aspect of the generative polarity is fear. Fear is the contractive force for consciousness. Fear is the force which influences us to become closed to truth, and the force which ultimately shuts down our awareness. Initiating expression, how it starts. The first stage of tangible and recognizable results which we produce in our lives after we have set the ball rolling by choosing the generative polarities of either love or fear. Positive equals knowledge, acceptance of truth. We choose love and something starts to happen. We become open to truth. Knowledge is the receiving of truth that we come to know. The positive aspect of the initiating expression is knowledge or the acceptance of truth. Knowledge positively influences the quality of our lives. Knowledge positively influences the quality of our lives because it positively influences our decision making processes in every area of our lives. Negative, ignorance, refusal of truth. The refusal to gain knowledge because we are in fear. The negative aspect of the initiating expression is ignorance or the refusal of truth. Ignorance negatively influences the quality of our lives because it negatively influences our decision-making processes in every area of our lives. It is important to remember that ignorance should be distinguished from nescience. Nescience means not knowing because necessary information is not present or unobtainable or is unobtainable. Ignorance, on the other hand, means not knowing even though necessary information is present, because that information has been willfully refused or disregarded. Ignorance is the root of all evil. Since only knowledge eradicates ignorance, it is our duty and moral obligation to educate ourselves as well as the masses around us. Internal expressions. What happens inside us? Positive equals sovereignty, internal monarchy. The positive aspect of the internal expression is sovereignty, or what I call, or what Passio calls, or I call now, internal monarchy. One ruler within. As a state of consciousness, sovereignty means that one has unified the three aspects of their consciousness such that there is no contradiction between one's thoughts, emotions, and actions. Internally, we each need to master ourselves. Each of us is a sovereign being. The word sovereign is derived from the Latin adverb super, above, and the Latin noun regnum, rulership, control. Thus, sovereign means one who is above the rulership or control of another. Sovereign means not a subject or a slave. It is an eternal truth that you are a sovereign. A sovereign is a monarch. Mon, one, archon, ruler. A single ruler who rules only the kingdom of self. Sovereignty is a state in which one controls one's own thoughts, emotions, and actions, and by bringing them into unity, non-contradiction, non-duality, attains mastery of one's own consciousness. Self-control equals self-mastery equals self-ownership. Negative equals confusion, internal anarchy. Confusion only happens in a lack because hang on. Confusion only happens in a lack of understanding. The negative aspect of the internal expression is confusion, or what I call internal anarchy. No ruler within. Okay, that makes sense. Confusion, I was confused. Confusion is the state of mind in which the being is ruled by fear and ignorance. Confusion could be seen as internal opposition or being torn apart from within, such that one's thoughts, emotions, and actions are in perpetual contradiction to each other. External expression. What happens in society? Positive equals freedom, external anarchy. The positive aspect of the external freedom expression of is freedom. I'll repeat that. The positive aspect of the external expression is freedom, or what I call external anarchy, no external ruler. True freedom for all should be seen as the goal of spiritual development. Such a state can only manifest as a result of human society's adherence to natural law. Negative equals control. The negative aspect of the external expression is control, or what I call external monarchy, one external ruler. Control is the pathway to all forms of evil and destruction. It results when a society lives in direct opposition to natural law. Manifestation, the result we create. Positive equals order manifested good. The positive manifestation is order or manifested goodness. Order represents everything we say we want. Order results only when there is a balance or justice, which can only be present when truth has been accepted and our behavior has been brought into harmony with natural law. Negative equals chaos, manifested evil. The negative manifestation is chaos or manifested evil. Chaos is the exact opposite of what we say we want. Chaos results when there is imbalance and injustice, which results whenever there is ignorance of truth and behavior which is in opposition to natural law. Right versus wrong. In the context of natural law and morality, it is crucial to understand the fundamental distinction between right and wrong. This isn't about aligning with different sides or perspectives, but rather about recognizing and acting upon moral truths. Right. Right actions or behaviors are those that are correct based in truth. They are moral, in harmony with natural law. Importantly, that are right do not result in harm to other sentient beings. Rights in this context are universal and apply equally to every human being. Wrong. Excuse me. In contrast, wrong actions or behaviors are those that are incorrect and not based in truth. They are immoral in opposition to natural law. Actions that are wrong result in harm to other sentient beings. Morality. Morality, as it pertains to natural law, transcends common political or societal dichotomies such as right versus left. Instead, it centers on the principles distinguishing right from wrong behavior. These principles are at the very core of understanding and adhering to natural law. In essence, morality can be understood as a form of true common sense. Common sense, in this context, involves possessing an inherent knowledge of what is right and wrong, of what is right and what is wrong. It's about comprehending and respecting the universal principles of natural law and allowing this understanding to guide our actions. When actions align with these principles, they can be described as moral. In contrast, actions that oppose natural law are considered immoral. The measure of morality, thus, isn't dictated by personal beliefs, societal norms, or legal systems, but by the objective truths encapsulated in natural law. When human beings live in harmony with natural law and are therefore moral, they become and remain free. When human beings live in opposition to natural law and are therefore immoral, they become and remain enslaved. Freedom and morality are directly proportional. This is what everyone's got to get in all fields. As morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. The presence of truth and morality in the lives of the people of any given society is inversely proportional to the presence of tyranny and slavery in that society. Knowing rights through apophatic inquiry. Another key thing I've learned from Mark Passio. Apophatic inquiry. From the Greek noun apophasis, to say no, is a method of logical reasoning used to understand what a thing is by describing what it is not, or affirmation through negation. This approach can help us better understand what rights are by considering which actions are not rights due to their harmful impacts on others. Transgressions of natural law. Transgressions or violations of natural law typically involve harmful actions such as murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion. Interestingly, all these harmful actions, I'll go back on those ones. Passio's got a presentation called The True Seven Deadly Sins, I think it's called. Interestingly, all these harmful actions that a human is capable of committing can be seen as forms of theft. They involve the stealing of some form of property. Life is a form of property. Rights are a form of property. Freedom is a form of property. An action can be considered a violation of natural law or a wrongdoing if it causes harm to a living being or their property. Any action not causing such harm is a right. That's what a right is. Any action not causing such harm is a right. Non-delegable wrongs. It's important to note that there is no such thing as the delegation of a wrong. If a specific action isn't a right for an individual, then that action cannot be delegated, granted, or licensed to any other individual or group and magically become a right. The action remains a wrong under natural law, irrespective of the population's belief systems. Testing harmony with natural law. If you are unsure whether an action or isn't in harmony with natural law, consider a world with only two people. If the action is a right or a wrong in this instance, it remains a right or a wrong in any population size, regardless of how many people may believe otherwise. Prohibition and natural law. Prohibition, the claim by a group of people, often called government, that they have the right to dictate what substances others may or may not put into their bodies, fundamentally infringes on natural law. It effectively claims ownership over another person's body. No individual has the right to claim ownership over another person's body, and this can never be delegated to a group and magically become a right. Hence, all forms of prohibition are always wrong according to natural law. Natural law transgressions. A living being or their property must have been harmed in order for a violation of natural law or a wrongdoing to have taken place. Grammar error issue there. Any action which does not cause harm is a right. There is no such thing as the delegation of a wrong. In other words, if a specific action is not a right, is not a, in other words, if a specific action is not a right for any individual, then that action cannot be delegated, granted, or licensed to any other individual or group, and then magically called a right. That action forever remains a wrong under natural law. Natural law always holds true regardless of a population's belief systems. This means that it does not matter how many people agree that a wrong can be turned into a right or that a right can be turned into a wrong. Such things can never be done in reality. People can only believe that such can people can only believe that they can claim such reversals and that this will magically make it so. Unfortunately, most human beings erroneously believe that it is morally possible for them to create and delegate rights wrong way, which do not exist, or take away rights which do exist. When in doubt as to whether an action is or not in harmony with natural law, visualize the scenario of a world with only two people. Just doubling up a little bit here, obviously. If the behavior is either a right or a wrong, in that instance, it remains a right or a wrong in any size population, regardless of how many people may believe otherwise. Okay, I'll skip this part because I think it's already said above. Force versus violence. The terms, and let me double check that. Force versus violence. The terms force and violence are often used interchangeably, which can lead to confusion because they are not the same. They are, in fact, diametrically opposed concepts with different implications in the context of natural law and morality. Force. Force refers to the capacity to do work or cause physical change. It represents energy, strength, or active power. In the context of natural law and morality, force is an action that is in harmony with these principles because it does not infringe upon others' rights. Force also includes defensive actions, and every individual inherently possesses the right to use force to protect themselves. It is an individual, if an individual is subjected to violence, they have the natural right to defend themselves and to stop the aggressor from causing further harm. The defensive force can match the level of violence they're facing, up to and including a deadly force if necessary. Violence, in contrast, is the immoral initiation of physical power used to coerce, compel, or restrain. Unlike force, violence is an action that opposes the principles of natural law and morality because it infringes upon others' rights. Violence is essentially a violation or an infringement on another person's rights, such as their right to life, liberty, or property. No one possesses the right to inflict violence, making it fundamentally different from the concept of defensive force. In summary, while force, particularly defensive force, is often necessary and justified under natural law, violence, defined as the immoral initiation of physical power, is never justified because it infringes upon the rights of others. The two pillars. Enlightenment in the context of natural law is founded on two critical principles, often referred to as the two pillars of enlightenment. These pillars serve as the guide for ethical and moral behavior, promoting harmony, freedom, and respect for all sentient beings. Context of enlightenment. Enlightenment is not just about personal growth or spiritual awareness. It also involves understanding the world around you and within you, knowing the objective difference between right and wrong, and living these principles every day. It means not inflicting harm on others and not accepting harm inflicted upon you. To be truly enlightened, one must fully grasp and live by these principles, know what is right and wrong, and live by them. Pillar one, sacred feminine, non aggression principle. The f- okay, non-aggression principle. The first pillar is the sacred feminine principle, often referred to as the non-aggression principle. This principle revolves around the concept of non-violence. It advises against the immoral initiation of non-rightful use of physical power to coerce, constrain, or compel the rightful physical behavior or free will choice of another sentient being. This principle emphasizes respect for the rights and free will of others, advocating for peaceful coexistence. Pillar 2, sacred masculine self defense principle. The second pillar is the sacred masculine principle, often referred to as the self defense principle. This principle allows for the use of force in self defense against violence enacted upon an individual. It acknowledges the inherent right of sentient beings to defend themselves from harm while reinforcing the distinction between force used for self defense and violence used for coercion or harm. In summary, the two pillars of enlightenment are about maintaining a balance, not inflicting a harm, non aggression principle, and preserving the right to protect oneself from harm, self defense principle. These principles establish the ethical and moral foundations for interactions between individuals, promoting a society grounded in respect for individual rights and freedom. Ownership. Ownership. Understanding the concept of ownership is essential for personal freedom and societal harmony. Ownership refers to the rightful possession, control of usage, and responsibility of a particular thing or concept. When you own something, it means you have the right to control how it is used and you have the responsibility for its maintenance and the consequences of its use. One of the main principles of natural law is the principle of non stealing. This principle respects the concept of ownership and underscores the immorality of taking what rightfully belongs to another. Many societal issues stem from a failure to understand and respect this principle. Conscience. The term conscience is derived from the Latin prefix con, meaning together, and the verb sciere, meaning to know or to understand. Hence, conscience can be seen as common sense or shared knowledge. In the context of natural law, conscience refers to the definitive knowledge of the subjective difference between right and wrong. It's the inherent understanding of natural law that guides our actions and helps us distinguish ethical actions from unethical ones. Exercise of conscience. The exercise of conscience involves making free will choices based on an understanding of right and wrong as defined by natural law. It means choosing to act ethically even when it's difficult or when unethical choices may seem more beneficial. It means choosing to act ethically even when it's difficult or when unethical choices may seem more beneficial. The law of freedom. The law of freedom asserts a direct relationship between freedom and morality. As morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. It proposes that the level of truth and morality in a society is inversely proportional to the level of tyranny and slavery in that society. In other words, the more a society adheres to truth and moral principles, the less tyranny and slavery exist within it. This principle also emphasizes that true freedom can never exist in a society that embraces moral relativism. Moral relativism is the belief that right and wrong are subjective and can be decided arbitrarily, contradicts the objective principles of natural law. Without a shared understanding of objective right and wrong, true freedom and societal harmony cannot be achieved. Natural law versus man's law. Natural law, based upon principles of truth, based upon principles and truth inherent to creation, while man's law is based upon dogmatic beliefs, construct of mind. Natural law is harmonized with due to knowledge and understanding, while man's law is complied with due to fear of punishment. Natural law is universal, exists and applies anywhere in the universe regardless of location, while man's law differs with location based upon the whim of legislators, moral relativism. Natural law is eternal and immutable, exists and applies for as long as the universe exists and cannot be changed, while man's law changes with time based upon the whim of legislators, which is moral relativism. So what does this mean for man's law? If a particular man-made law is in harmony with natural law, then it follows logically that it is redundant, since it is stating a truth that is inherent, pre-existing, and self-evident. Therefore, it is both irrelevant and unnecessary. If a particular man-made law is in opposition to natural law, then it follows logically that it is both false, incorrect, and immoral, harmful, or in other words, wrong. Therefore, it cannot be legitimately binding upon anyone. In light of natural law, man's law is irrelevant and unnecessary. Everyone has the exact same rights. No one has any more or less rights than anyone else. Also, since rights are not created by humanity, and since they are the birthright of humanity, gifted to us by the creator of the universe, no human being or group of human beings is actually capable of granting rights to anyone else, nor is any human being capable of revoking rights from anyone else. Government. The term government is derived from Latin roots. The verb gubernere means to control, and mens means mind. So the literal translation of government could be to control the mind or mind control. This etymology suggests the inherent role of government in shaping thoughts and actions of individuals within its jurisdiction. Understanding the etymology of government also relates to the principle of mentalism, one of the tenets of natural law. This principle emphasizes that everything that exists in our reality, the plane of effects, must have first existed in the mind, the plane of causality. Authority and jurisdiction. Authority and jurisdiction are related concepts that deal with control and law. The term jurisdiction comes from Latin roots jus, juris, meaning law, and dictere, meaning to speak, to say. So jurisdiction can be interpreted as to say what the law is. However, the belief in authority can be problematic when it is based on an unchallenged assumption that some people, masters, have the moral right to issue commands, and others, slaves, have a moral obligation to obey these commands. This belief essentially equates to an endorsement of slavery, as it involves a lack of equality and freedom. Hence, the belief in the legitimacy of authority is, in essence, the belief in the legitimacy of slavery. Religion. The term religion comes from the Latin verb religare or religare, which means to tie back, to hold back, to thwart from forward progress, to bind. This suggests that religion, in some contexts, can be a system of control based on unchallenged dogmatic beliefs that can potentially hinder the progress of consciousness. This isn't to say that all religious beliefs or practices are negative or harmful, but rather that any belief system can become oppressive if it's used to limit freedom or thought of action. The one true divide. The one true divide that you're describing here refers to the fundamental difference between people based on their belief in the concept of authority. A statist is an individual who believes in the existence of authority, which grants certain people the right to rule over others. These authorities or governments have the moral right to issue commands to those they rule over, and the people under their jurisdiction have a moral obligation to obey these commands. In essence, a statist believes in the legitimacy of a system that resembles slavery. An anarchist, on the other hand, rejects the idea of authority or government. They view these concepts as euphemisms for violence and slavery, which are in direct opposition to natural law. The term anarchy comes from the Greek prefix an, meaning without, and archon, meaning master or ruler. Therefore, anarchy literally means without rulers or without masters. It's a state of existence where there are no masters and no slaves, equating to the absence of slavery and hence the presence of freedom. This divide underscores a fundamental philosophical disagreement about the nature of power. And I'll repeat that. This divide underscores a fundamental philosophical disagreement about the nature of power, authority, and freedom. It should be noted, though, that these are extreme positions on a spectrum of political beliefs, and many individuals' views may fall somewhere in between. The fear of chaos. It teaches us through oh man, I'm tongue-tied. Apophysis, what not to do. Woof. The control and slavery system is about limitation of free will through the destruction of possibility. True freedom includes infinite possibility, which by definition includes a possibility of chaos. This possibility must be embraced without fear if we are to be truly free. The fear of the possibility of chaos is the fear of true freedom, equals death of the imagination. Imagine ourselves. The fear of the possibility of chaos is the death of the imagination. Imagination is the powerful ability of the human mind to envision a different state or condition than the one which is already manifested. Imagination must be present in order to create a different state of existence than the one currently being experienced. Because according to the principle of mentalism, for a different state to manifest in the physical world, plane of effects, it must first exist within the mind, plane of causality. If the imagination is stifled or destroyed, total mind control, any positive change to our state of existence becomes completely impossible. Through their fear of the possibility of chaos, true freedom, most people advocate the legitimacy and continuance of authority and government, and are therefore actually advocating the legitimacy and continuance of violence and slavery. Those who actually believe that authority is necessary and that it must continue have actually been duped into believing that human slavery is necessary and must continue in order to prevent chaos. Violence and slavery cannot prevent chaos. Violence and slavery are chaos. Order followers are the ones who keep slavery in place. Following orders means doing what you're told to do without judging for yourself whether or not the action you are being ordered to carry out is a right or wrong. If an individual is following orders, that individual cannot be exercising conscience, since by definition, exercising conscience means that one is willfully choosing for themselves right action over wrong action. I was just following orders is never a valid excuse or justification for immoral criminal behavior, and this lame attempt to abdicate personal responsibility should never be accepted as a valid excuse for such behavior. From the Latin noun jus, right, law, and the Latin verb facere, to create a right, the order follower always bears more moral culpability than the order giver, because the order follower is the one who actually performed the action, and in taking such action actually brought the resultant harm into physical manifestation. Order following is the pathway to every form of evil and chaos in our world. It should never be seen as a virtue by anyone who considers themselves as a moral human being. Order followers have ultimately been personally responsibility been order followers have ultimately been personally responsible and morally culpable for every form of slavery and every single totalitarian regime that has ever existed upon the face of the earth. Moral culpability, the determination of who is ultimately at fault or deserving of blame for the commission of actions which resulted in harm or loss to others. I'll read that again. Moral culpability, the determination of who is ultimately at fault or deserving of blame for the commission of actions which resulted in harm or loss to others. Culpable, at fault, deserving of blame, from the Latin noun culpa, fault, blame. Responsibility versus abdication. An individual's personal responsibility to choose right action over wrong action for themselves is always their own. One can only claim that they are abdicating personal responsibility for such choice to someone else. It can never actually be done. In reality, it can never actually be done in reality. More simply put, an individual is always responsible for their own actions. Accept responsibility for yourself and your actions, thoughts, and words. You alone make choices. You alone are answerable to the consequences of your behavior. The feeble excuse that your boss required it, the establishment expected it, holds no truth or justification. What is the point of having principles if you allow others to dictate your behavior? At the end of the day, you will judge your performance on the contribution you have made to creation. It will not be based on what another expected of you or what you did because you felt trapped. Most people erroneously believe that they can hand over their natural law right to defend themselves to another individual, group, or entity. In making such a false claim, they have attempted to abdicate a responsibility which always belongs to them and can never be given away. Self respect versus self loathing. Self loathing is the underlying psychological condition that causes people to attempt to abdicate their own personal responsibility to exercise conscience and fall into patterns of order following and justification. Just as it is not possible for an order follower to truly be exercising conscience, it is not possible for an order follower to truly love themselves. Self loathing is created when an earlier trauma has been suppressed and buried into the subconscious mind instead of being confronted, dealt with, and healed. Such trauma could take the form of feelings of inadequacy, whether real, suggested, or imagined. Self-respect, from the Latin prefix "a" re, again, and the Latin verb spectare, to look at, to take another look at oneself. Only self-respect can heal self-loathing, therefore help to put an order follower on the path to conscience. So we've got to take another look at oneself. The lost word is a concept esoteric Freemasonry, which represents a state of consciousness that has been largely lost to the majority of human beings. In order to speak the lost word, a human being must work upon themselves in order to achieve a state of equilibrium or balance between the left and right brain hemispheres. Such a state of consciousness, the being has come to know the self as well as the working operations of natural law, and in doing so has come to understand the objective differences between right and wrong, or as I refer to in Freemasonry, light and darkness, respectively. In the enlightened state of consciousness generated no through the knowledge of natural law, a human being is finally able to speak the lost word, which is no. No is a word of all power. Only when we say no to those who would claim to be our owners, those who claim that it is they who will decide which rights we have or do not have, do we stop externalizing our power to anyone outside of ourselves and, in doing so, reclaim all our rights. Sadly, very, very few people in our world have the knowledge, care, and courage that is required to do this. This is why this all powerful word is considered lost. Teaching natural law to others is a great work. What I'm doing here, let's go. The term the great work refers to the endeavor of educating others about natural law and leading them out of ignorance and towards enlightenment. It implies the sharing of knowledge about moral and ethical principles and personal responsibility. A significant shift in human consciousness is necessary for humanity to liberate itself from its self-imposed state of slavery. This transformative shift, however, does not occur automatically or assuredly. It largely depends on an individual willingness to learn the truth, embrace it, and dedicate the time and effort to teach it to others. A quantum shift has requirements. The phrase quantum shift requires, and it will involve quantum. The phrase quantum shift refers to a significant radical change. In the context of the great work, it denotes a substantial change in human consciousness. The term quantum originates from the Latin word for amount, suggesting that a substantial number of people must engage in the process of teaching and learning the truth for a significant shift in the collective consciousness to occur. This idea contradicts the New Age belief that individual spiritual growth alone can cause a significant societal change. Instead, it emphasizes the need for collective effort and learning, asserting that individual choices in harmony or opposition to natural law aggregate and influence the collective human experience. This concept is based on the Hermetic principle of correspondence, often summarized as above, so below, as below, so above. To bring about a significant shift, a critical mass of enlightened individuals is required. The true great work. The true great work refers to the effort required to influence others to comprehend the truth about natural law and align themselves within it. This means convincing them to reassess their beliefs in authority and government man-made law, helping them to understand that by supporting these structures, they are in fact endorsing a form of slavery. It also involves guiding them to the realization that such support has been immoral. In essence, the true great work involves persuading individuals to abandon their rigid beliefs or religions, the set of convictions that often obstruct the progress of consciousness and hinder the understanding and acceptance of truth and natural law. However, one of the biggest challenges in performing the true great work is the illusion of knowledge. This illusion refers to the mistaken belief that one already understands the truth, which hinders learning and progress. This is because people who believe they already know the truth are often resistant to accepting new ideas or questioning their current beliefs. As Bertolt Brecht, the German playwright and poet, once said, "Truth is belligerent. Truth is, by its very nature, at war with the forces of falsehood and deceit." The true great work, then, is a struggle against falsehood and deceit and an endeavor to bring the belligerent truth to light. The fear of freedom. The fear of freedom, often referred to as eleutherophobia, is a complex psychological condition that can stem from various sources. Here, you suggest three key components that contribute to the development of this fear. Abandonment issues. These issues often originate in early childhood experiences where individuals may have felt emotionally or physically abandoned by caregivers. This feeling of abandonment can also be extended to a cosmic level where individuals may feel abandoned by a higher power or the universe itself. These experiences of abandonment can lead to deep seated insecurities and fears, one of which is the fear of freedom, as freedom may be associated with isolation, loneliness, or being unaided. Self loathing due to lack of self respect. A lack of self respect or self worth often accompanies feelings of abandonment. Individuals may blame themselves for the perceived abandonment and may develop a sense of self loathing. This negative self image can make the prospect of freedom intimidating, as freedom involves self reliance and self determination, traits that someone with low self respect might feel they lack. Refusal to own personal responsibility. Personal responsibility is a fundamental aspect of freedom. However, some individuals might resist accepting personal responsibility due to a fear of failure or being blamed. This fear could be amplified by previous experiences of abandonment or self loathing, where the individual learned to associate blame with negative emotions. Therefore, the responsibility that comes with freedom might be seen as a threat rather than a privilege. What will be required on the part of those performing the great work? Knowledge of the real enemy, an understanding of the systems, beliefs, and constructs that are oppressing people and preventing the propagation of truth is essential. This knowledge includes an understanding of institutions that uphold these systems, the psychological methods used to maintain control, and the societal structures that perpetuate inequality and ignorance. Service to truth, dedication to uncovering, learning, and spreading the truth is critical. The person performing the great work should believe in the invincibility of truth and its crucial role in liberation. They should strive to become defenders of truth, constantly seeking it out and sharing it with others, regardless of the challenges they might face. Courage and persistence. Speaking truth in a world that often rejects it requires courage. Additionally, the great work is not a task that yields quick results. It demands persistence and a commitment to continue advocating for truth, regardless of setbacks or slow progress. Practical real world skills. While the spiritual and mental aspects of the great work are crucial, practical skills also play a significant role. These skills include organization, being able to manage your time, tasks, and resources effectively is vital. Communication, you need to articulate ideas clearly and persuasively. Graphic design, visual communication can be an impactful way of conveying concepts and ideas. Presentation, skills in presenting information clearly and engagingly can help to hold people's attention and make them more receptive to your message. Audio visual video production, the ability to create high quality multimedia content can greatly amplify your message. Website creation, a strong online presence can be crucial in reaching a wider audience. Networking, building connections with like minded individuals can provide support and amplify your efforts. Marketing and promotion, effectively promoting your message can help it reach more people and have a greater impact. Harmony with natural law, freedom. When individuals and societies live in harmony with natural law, they respect the freedom of each person to live as they wish, as long as they do not infringe upon the rights and freedoms of others. Peace. Harmony with law also leads to peace, as it discourages aggression and encourages cooperation and respect for the rights and freedoms of others. Prosperity. In a society that respects natural law, there's an environment conducive for prosperity. With freedom and peace, individuals can engage in productive activities without fear of aggression, leading to societal progress and prosperity. Survival. Respect for natural law also leads to a higher likelihood of survival, as societies are more likely to prioritize the well-being of all members and work together in times of crises. Evolutionary progress. Finally, living in harmony with natural law encourages evolutionary progress, as it allows for diversity, free thought, and the possibility for societal advancement and innovation. Opposition to natural law. Control and enslavement. Opposition to natural law often leads to control and enslavement. When individuals or institutions infringe upon the rights and freedoms of others, they effectively control and enslave those individuals. War. Opposition to natural law can lead to war. When rights and freedoms are disregarded, conflicts arise which can escalate into larger scale violence and war. Evolutionary stagnation. When natural law is opposed, societies often stagnate. Without freedom, individuals can't express their full potential, leading to stagnation in technological, cultural, and societal development. Extinction. Finally, continual opposition to natural law could even lead to extinction. In the extreme, war, control, and stagnation can threaten the survival of individuals and societies. And that, everybody, concludes the notes, the reading, the condensed form of Mark Passio's natural law seminar, the real law of attraction. I'm Nick Haslam. This is Cosmic Surfers, and thank you to E.L. Lang for taking those notes, and on behalf of Hum Hive. Thank you very much, and until next time, ciao for now.